We are here today with Ryan Kuhn of Kuhn Family Home Inspections, who is a home inspector I work with a lot on different projects in Monmouth, Ocean, and Middlesex County. So we're so happy to have you here today.
Yes, welcome, Ryan.
I'm happy to be here. Very excited.
Yeah, it's fun.
We were just saying when the camera was off about having the seller there at a home inspection. How do you feel about having a seller there at the home inspection? Seems like sometimes it could solve a lot of problems, but sometimes it could create more.
It's good and bad. Very normal, very common. People, the buyers kind of get freaked out about it sometimes.
Oh, they really do.
Yeah, but it really depends on the seller. Because if they're walking around with you over your shoulder, it can be a little bit of a nightmare. Because you don't really want to say anything in front of them. I tell the buyers this. I don't care about the negotiations, but I also don't want to say anything in front of a seller or buyer that kind of might step on toes. So if they're walking around with you and over your shoulder, kind of creates a little bit of claustrophobia. But sometimes they kind of give you your space, they give you your distance, and there's things that come up on the home inspections that I'll usually just tell the buyer, like, hey, sometimes you just have to ask the seller. They're going to know it, so they can help a good amount of times. You know? Yeah,
that's true.
It's just kind of hard because obviously you want a fair inspection.
Yeah.
Regardless of what side you're on. But I had an inspector once who told me, he used to work on the floor on the stock exchange, and then he sold his chair and he, decided to become a home inspector. I'm like, okay, okay. So, sometimes you have people who know a little about a lot, right? Yeah. And that's a little dangerous. So it's like getting into this business. You started to tell me, but you could tell our audience too, you kind of grew up in the business, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your family side of it and where you are now and why you're probably one of the best inspectors to use.
I'd like to think I am. Big family business. That's why it's Kuhn Family Home Inspections. It's kind of a long story, so I'll kind of give you the shortened version. But my grandfather used to work for J&J. He was a kind of a marketing guy, and in the early 70s, he was an entrepreneur. So he left J&J, started AMC Property Evaluations, which is a home inspection company, which back in the 70s, people didn't really get home inspections. Yeah. So he was a little bit of a pioneer, kind of going into real estate offices and recommending that for clients. And then eventually in the late 70s, he franchised the idea into Housemaster Home Inspections, which is one of the largest franchises out there today. Eventually, my mother started a franchise out in Westchester County. My father got involved as one of the lead inspectors. Eventually, my grandfather retired and my mother jumped over to the corporate side of things. She ran the corporate side of Housemaster for 15, 20 plus years. My father took over as the franchise owner here in New Jersey. Eventually, after college, I got into the family business with them. So I kind of grew up with all of it, family parties, dinners, everything was just home inspections. So I grew up literally following my father around. He's been doing this for 30, 40 years. He still does it.
Wow.
And it's just something.
Yeah.
I think he did. The first time I ever met you, actually, I think you were the listing agent on an inspection I did. And then you booked me like the next day, and my father went out there.
Because he went through the buyers and he talked to them about every single thing, so that when they got that report, which is so overwhelming for many buyers, they wasn't a freak out. That house was also a tough one.
It blows my mind that do home inspectors not go around with?
No.
Really? I mean, that honestly sounds great, but I do try and but you have to go. I mean, you have to tell them everything that's in there.
Yeah.
They don't explain it. They put the fear of God in it. You sometimes walk out of these houses and you think it's ready to collapse. You're like, wow, I'm glad it didn't fall down while we were there. And they hold older homes to new home standards and they don't explain the difference. And quite frankly, I think the older homes were built better than the newer homes.
Amen.
And I always say it's the test of time. It might be from 1910, but looks good to me, still standing. The house isn't going to fall down. Don't take what, sometimes the home inspectors just do, they just don't explain it properly.
Yeah.
And they leave the buyers making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because now they're going home, they're laying in bed, they're thinking about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, we just bought a nightmare. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
Because truly everything is fixable.
Yeah. Oh, amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything is fixable. You just have to figure out what's important and what's not. And figure out how you want to make it work.
Well, I always say there's three things that make a really good home inspector. Number one is experience. You want someone who's been around thousands of houses, whether maybe they're a new home inspector, but they used to be an HVAC guy or an electrician or something like that. They're handy. The second thing is going to be thoroughness. A lot of older inspectors, unfortunately, don't really get on roofs anymore. They don't get in crawl spaces. So you want someone who's kind of go see all the little nooks and crannies. But arguably the most important part of the home inspection is communication.
With everything.
Communication. And a lot of it, like you just said, like older houses, if it's been around 100 years, it's probably going to be around another 100 years. Older homes kind of have their own unique quirks to them.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't look at an old house with new lenses. It's all about perspective. It's all about kind of giving them context for a lot of things we're finding. Communication is obviously the number one thing.
And understanding it. And knowing if a house has aluminum wiring in it, it can be pigtailed and it's not going to go on fire tomorrow. And it's okay. We can make this work, right?
Yeah.
Amen.
What percentage of houses would you say, like, I know you never say this because you can't, but that you would actually walk away from if it were you? Is it like 20%?
No, it's less than that. I'd probably say like 5 or 10%.
Wow. That's good to
I'd
know.
say probably 10 to 20% of the houses I'll walk away from being like, you know what? If that deal falls through, I won't be too upset. Maybe, I'm not going to get a phone call or something like that. But every now and then you'll get a house that you're like, yeah, I really hope they don't get that.
Yeah.
And I try and, I never tell a client, like, don't buy a house or buy it. It's not my job. I'm just there to kind of describe the condition of it. But I'll try and verbally kind of word it like, hey, just know what you're getting into, go through the report, and get all your ducks in a row and everything like that. But, most houses you go into are fine, that's.
The problem is sometimes now with your first time home buyers, Monmouth County has appreciated so quickly that your $600,000 house, which was a house you could keep for 10 years, and that was now your 3-year house, if you could find something for $600,000, which you really can't. And, what accommodations do they have to make? That's because it is my job kind of to tell them. So anything structural, for the most part, I'm like run. But that's really.
Yeah, I don't know.
Everything else is flexible. Structural is fixable too, but when you have a limited budget, it can be very expensive.
Yeah, it's also like you're the realtor, so you're way more involved in the deal than I am. I don't get into like the finances with the clients, so like I don't know that too much of that stuff. So like I'll be describing some issues, but sometimes the buyers are like fully expecting for like a full-on renovation. So it's, there's a little bit of like context that I don't really get involved too much with.
Yeah.
So some houses I think are really rough, but clients know it's going to be really rough and they kind of have that budget set aside. Where then some clients, they're spending every penny on the down payment and they can't afford
nothing to budget for.
Yeah. So those are things I don't really get too involved with, but
I think buyers, and I hope the home inspectors do this too, you have to treat your house, it's like your body. You need to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
Like a 30-year-old body who's not been maintained, like a 30-year-old house, it's not going to fare as well as a house that has been really lovingly maintained. And I think we're lucky enough to live in an area where there is a lot of pride of ownership, and most people really do take care of their houses. They might not be perfect, and they might be missing a couple of shingles because they weren't up on the roof to see that they were missing a couple of shingles. It wasn't through neglect, right? It was just because maybe they didn't know. So I think my advice to new buyers too is like, you're buying a house that you do need to budget for. You do need a rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. The hot water heater might blow tomorrow. I don't know, and it might be fine today. But you just have to expect certain things will happen, and you have to. I tell my husband all the time, go for a walk around the house after a storm, because that's when you do find the shingle or a broken piece of a vent or something like that, right? So you just have to pay attention to the house. You can't just buy it and never think about it again.
Yeah.
Changing your filters.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell every buyer, like, hey, have a little bit set aside. Home inspecting, our home inspections are thorough. We're trying to be as honest as we can, but like, we can't see behind the walls. There's gonna be little things that pop up after buying a house. Yeah, and I try and convey that to the buyers, like, hey, just have a little bit set aside. But
I remember my parents when they sold a house. This was like in the 90s. The buyers wanted to go into all the walls to make sure there was no termite damage, and my dad was like, "See you later."
Yeah.
I actually never had that. I get some crazy ones, but I've never had
all the walls.
All of them. They wanted to take a square of every single wall.
Wow.
Do people do
it's
that?
A little invasive.
No. Thank God. No, I get some pretty weird requests, but no, nothing like that. That's kind of upsetting.
What are your big things, like chimneys, I would think, and gutters?
The first thing I always look at a house, because it's the biggest indicator of like whether it's going to be further issues later on in the inspection, is just drainage around the exterior. If you walk up to a house, first thing you do is I always take a walk around the exterior and get a lay of the land. If all the downspouts are going right at the corners of the foundation, the patio is sloped down towards the house, that's like the biggest red flag that might not be causing too much issues on the outside, But whenever you get to the inside, you're probably going to have a damp or wet basement. That's going to contribute to mold issues. So my biggest things are always going to be drainage on the exterior. And then...
And that's a pretty easy fix too. You don't have to have your drains buried under the landscaping. You can do an exposed drain pipe away from the house. I mean, it might not be as pretty, but it does the job and gets the water away from the house.
Yeah.
That's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Do you ever walk into a house and know there's a do-it-yourself for a living here?
Yeah.
Right? Is that kind of scary sometimes?
Yeah, I was in one a couple weeks ago. That was, where was I? I was in Middlesex County somewhere. And everything, and then the guy selling the house, he was there. He's a very nice guy, but he mentioned he was an HVAC guy. He did a lot of work on the house, and it was, every single thing was wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But you come across that pretty regularly, and it's usually kind of small stuff that's kind of, not too crazy, and it's fairly insignificant. But every now and then you come across something that's like, whoa,
Because it can all add up, right?
Yeah, and it gets tricky too, because whenever you have, and I tell clients this, is when you have contractors come in, they've got to fix someone else's work, and then that always gets a little bit more complicated,
Yeah.
But that's.
What would you say advice for people living in a house, whether it's a new house or old? Like, what would you say would be one of the top things that you should take care of in your house, if there is one? Like, I know that's a weird way to question it, but like, what do you feel people neglect that they shouldn't neglect?
Drainage. I mean, I talk
Just
about it
drainage,
all
just
the
like
time.
you
I mean,
said,
it's just so many. I was in a house earlier this morning that it was an adult community with a little concrete patio in the back, and it had completely settled to the foundation.
Wow.
And you go into the basement, there was a crack in the foundation, there was water issues getting in there, there was mold in the attic space. I mean, water causes almost every single problem in the house.
Does.
And everything you can do to get water away from a property, the better off it's going to be. And I talk about it so much, I beat a dead horse, but like, it's just water.
Okay.
Being proactive as opposed to reactive, like with a water heater, when it hits 10 or 12 years old, just replace it. They're not expensive.
Don't wait for it to break and flood.
Yeah, because when it does, you're going to have a problem. And everyone has a water heater story. Your HVAC systems, run them into the ground. Your electrical systems, assuming they're not ancient or anything like that, they'll probably be fine. It's, asterisks on stuff like that. But anything water related, just get ahead of it.
Okay. Good advice.
Even furnaces, because I'm actually getting mine done in AC, and one of the technicians that came out to give me an estimate was like, don't let this AC die, because I'm not going to be able to get up here when it's 110 degrees. Like, you might not, is that true? Or is it?
Well, when it goes, it's going to go in the middle of summer when you need it most.
Yeah,
so
he sold me on that. He got me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with him. That's what I tell every client.
Yeah. I mean, you could already see the coils roll. It was going.
Yeah.
So
ride it off into the sunset. But when it goes, it's going to go when you need it most. That's
then
the
it
problem.
just stops your world.
Oh my God. No air conditioning in the summer. Oh, can do.
Yeah, no. So I agree. Just stay ahead of it.
Yeah.
It's hard. We're dealing with a runny toilet right now. And I'm like telling my husband, I'm like, you want to see what the water bill is going to be? Like, fix this. He's in there doing it right now. But that's like super annoying,
Yeah.
But sometimes people just let them go. Like, we're in the house and you just hear it in the background going, and I'm just looking at the client saying,
you get used to the sound. You don't, that's not that
I
big
get
a deal.
that's what people
it's a
do.
$5 fix.
Yeah, they just don't see it. People get very used to their house.
Yeah.
They just don't see it.
Have you ever been chased by any kind of wild animals or anything on a home inspection?
No,
Oh my gosh,
God.
like in an attic or a basement? What do you mean?
It was a beautiful house at Rumson, and it was the pool house. There was a mama raccoon and a bunch of little baby raccoons. I opened the door, and the kids were going to run in. I was with the little kids, all excited. I was like, "Kids, get out of here!" And she was gonna pounce.
Wow,
That's
scary.
Raccoon's biggest fear. It's going to happen one day. Like, I'm going to pop open an attic space, and it's going to be right there, but not yet.
Yeah.
No. Squirrels. I come across squirrels pretty regularly. Birds in attic spaces pretty often, but no, raccoons.
Bats.
I actually saw a dead bat earlier today.
Oof.
It was stuck in an attic fan.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I actually, this is a story I did I don't want to waste too much time.
Didn't it smell?
It was only one bat, so I didn't think it was too bad.
Okay.
But I did a home inspection. It was in Princeton. This is years ago. And you went into the attic space, and there was feces in the insulation. I mean, like a ton, like an absurd amount. Turned out they were bats. And this was in springtime, June or something like that. And this was like a multi huge house, multi-million dollars. They had to delay the closing for like 6 months because you couldn't touch the bats.
You can't get the bats out until after March. I've had bats.
Yeah, so they had. I mean, they didn't buy the house; it was a whole nightmare. But
over the bats.
Wow.
that I think was just the cherry on top of the whole house. There was a lot of. It was
Wait, why can't you get them out until March?
Because they're an endangered species.
Oh
So you
God,
can't kill the
really?
babies.
Yeah, so they
Bats are an endangered. Wow.
Parts of them are. They can mess up your whole ecosystem. Not to bore all of our listeners, but if they start, you'll get overrun by mosquitoes and insects if you don't have a big bat population.
Oh, that is true. I forgot about
Yeah,
that. We
I
have to
found
like our
that
bats.
later on from the realtor, but that was just an interesting one.
Yeah,
Wow.
you could find someone to pay to get them out.
I'm sure someone would have done it. Just it's gotta be quiet about it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we all know, as much as we'd love the sellers to be there, it's not the right thing. What about like when dad's there with
Never a problem. Honestly, that's
Really?
that's the big joke is like the dad shows up and it's always a nightmare. 99 times out of 100, not too much of a problem.
Okay, but
Yeah,
does he follow you around like every
Yeah,
little
but
thing?
I've been doing this a long time. I know how to talk to him. I know,
Yeah.
give him an outlet tester, chase him around the house, let him do his thing. I know what I'm doing,
It's
but
your
they're
job.
usually fine, and they're looking out for the kids. So
Yeah, they are.
yeah, I think I found something that might be a little. I found a friend of the buyer who lives in the same development. That one was because his air conditioner didn't work, so he assumed all of them didn't work. That was a tricky one. But no, dads are fine. They're okay.
Do you find that maybe their kids, like the younger generation, do you just find like they're a little bit more house stupid than like the dad generation
absolutely.
might have been? And are they Googling everything? And they just they didn't grow up knowing how to run a house, right?
Not at all.
It's so funny.
I'm 32. My friends are all 32. None of them know anything about houses. Yeah. And so they look at me like I'm a genius,
Jeez, I can't imagine what my sons are going to be like because my husband's pathetic. I love him. But
Yeah, like I feel like the older dads taught, the sons and I don't know, maybe they just helped out around the house more, that they had to learn how to do things. I mean, I'm lucky my husband is very, very handy dandy, and hopefully that toilet's fixed by the time I get home tonight. But some of them really, I told you this story a couple times. We've had buyers who bought and they call me up or text me in the middle of the night. They're like, what do I do with this bug? We had someone who didn't know how to. They're like, Doreen, we can't get the fireplace lit. And, my husband went over there and he was like, it's not a gas fireplace.
Yeah.
It's a wood burning fireplace.
oh, that's a good one.
You just like, wow, I guess you came from an apartment in the city, but wow,
The first generation city people
funny.
are interesting.
Yeah.
There's some that have grown up in the city and then they come down here.
And I guess they,
and then you have all that land. Joe and I were. Doreen sold me my house. And
Yeah.
Joe and I were pathetic with this landscaping. There's no.
it was a huge piece of property. It was beautiful. It was really, really beautiful. But it was more than, they wanted to take on.
Yeah.
You have to want to live in suburbia. You have to
Yeah.
want a lawn because you know what? Taking care of the landscaping is just as important as taking care of the house,
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot of work too. And people
a
don't
lot of
realize
work.
that,
Or a lot of money if you choose not to.
Yeah.
It
yourself.
literally encroaches on the house. That must be a big thing for you too, right? Because the trees that were, probably little 3-gallon shrubs are now trees, ruining the roof, right? All that moss and everything is just horrible for the shingles.
Yep.
And you get all that dead leaves and stuff into the gutter. So now the gutters are all clogged and overflowing, right? That's you could probably do a whole podcast on that alone.
Yeah, that's another big one. Just clog gutters in general and get them clean. And then gutter guards, by the way, you still need to get them cleaned. All right, I'm just going to throw that out there because no one ever gets them cleaned. But
Good point. But shrubs and trees are supposed to be how far away from a house?
a few feet. I mean, trees in general should be,
Because the
15.
roots can do a lot of damage to the foundation.
I don't really see that too often, but I mean, that is the concern with them.
Well, the sewer lines you do.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different story. Yeah, sewer lines, you got to be
And
very careful.
septic.
Yeah.
Either or.
But yeah, they should be at least 10, 15 feet away.
Okay.
Shrubs, bushes, vines. Everyone loves the vines growing up on the brick chimneys and everything like that. It's a nightmare. Gets into the bricks, ruins everything. Termites climb up them. I know.
I'm not a fan of that look, but I know some people
I think
are.
it looks great, but it just, I would keep it on my house. But it's just not great for the masonry and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. And like the old landscaping designs where they would have like 3 different rows of shrubs, like a green one, a more yellow one or whatever. And they grow big and they grow close to the house, but it's not good for the foundation, right?
No, it's not good for the foundation. And and it holds water too. It's
in the ground.
Yeah.
That sits right up against. It's called hydrostatic.
Hydrostatic pressure. There you go. You know your stuff.
Yeah, I do. Because I do like to go on my home inspections,
Yeah.
whether I'm for the buy side or the listing side, because you really do learn so much.
Yeah.
And you then get to talk to your people about it and explain it more in like layman's terms, you know? And I think that they respect that. That's why they're hiring us,
So,
Totally.
right? We need to know.
when you guys have a listing and there's a home inspection on the house, you guys show up?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't stay for the whole thing. I let the buyer have a special hour in there with just their, but then I come for the last hour.
I appreciate that. I actually really like when people do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes the home inspector's giving you a look like, you're the enemy. And it's like, we're not. We're one team. We're working together.
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree more with you. But I will say this from the home inspector, it is like the when the seller stays there and they're hovering over your shoulder. So when the listing agent's like in the kitchen doing their thing,
that's what I do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But
because I like to I'm more of a visual person. So if you can show me where this crack might be or what, it just makes it easier for me then to explain it to the seller. And I get them thinking about it before we get the report and the thing from the lawyer and all that other
from
stuff.
our perspective, I just feel like it's a bad client experience to have the seller get some crazy letter and I didn't know anything about it. So that's why.
No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, we're all working together. It's not a secret what the buyer side knows versus what the listing side knows. We want to protect both clients, but we need to work together.
Yeah.
And we can't always just assume the worst, right? Like I said earlier, everything I really think is fixable.
Yeah.
You just have to know what's important, what to prioritize, because you can't do everything. You're not moving into a brand new house. Worse yet, you have an inspection on a brand new house and there's still issues, right? Because they're built by people and people live in the houses. So nothing is perfect. And you as an inspector, I have a lot of respect for, but you're human too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You can only take in so much. Like I know you have your process and you know exactly what to do so you don't miss anything, but right?
Yeah.
But you're human at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're all human, guys.
We are. No, but like, yes. So there has to be like a certain level of understanding and you're not buying a perfect.
No house is perfect.
No house is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we do our best to understand them and work within them and we will eventually come to love them if we treat them well. It's all good. So did you ever have what would you say would be one of the craziest situations you ever came across in a house?
I actually,
besides maybe the bats. Maybe the bats might have been the craziest.
I mean, I've been in houses that are everything in the house was eaten by termites. Like you could put your finger through the beams and everything like that. And that's one of the very few times I told the buyer, no, you're not getting this one. I actually did a home inspection the other day. This is 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I went to go back pick up the radon test, and the seller let me in. He was an older gentleman, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, yeah, go right in." So I walk by him, and about 10 feet in, I hear a thud, and I turn around. He's face down on the floor.
No.
There was 2 or 3 seconds where I'm like, "What's this guy doing?" And I immediately ran up to him, and he just woke up. He's like, "Oh, I'm good."
Oh my gosh.
So I called the listing agent who I knew was close. I don't know how, because when I did the actual inspection, he picked him up and everything like that. And I was like, "Hey, this guy, you might want to come over and check on him." But that was, that was 2 weeks ago.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, maybe you saved his life. You know what I'm saying?
I like to think I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was crazy.
Timing is everything. Wow.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. They all.
Go back to the termites. How do people, how do you know you have termites? To the untrained eye, how did termites get that bad that those people had no idea?
Well, so that was a foreclosure. No one was living in the house. It'd been bank owned for, I think, probably years, something like that.
Okay.
But it was interesting because I start from the top down. I'll go attic space, second floor, first floor, and just walking through the whole house. Everything was wonky. Floors were all sloped. They were just all crazy. And it was an older house, so you're like, maybe it's just things moving a little bit. And then you get down to the basement, you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So termites, this is the time of year termites are kind of swarming. This is kind of what they're looking for wood this time of year. So they're coming up from the ground. Both houses I was in today had some termite issues. What they'll do is they'll come up from the ground. They swarm. They make these little mud tunnels that come up through, the foundation wall or something like that. So you can look for the little mud tunnels. They're kind of hard to miss. But they look like ants. They're swarming. So you'll see ants flying around the house with wings on them. They're looking for wood. And so, unless you really don't know, they're pretty hard to miss, I feel.
I've seen the tunnels. I can't say I ever saw a live
Like a colony.
term. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they only do it like this time of year.
Okay.
But everyone freaks out about termites. Termites are not good. You don't want to have them.
Yeah.
But you really have to like not be looking for them to not notice them. Yeah, to miss them.
Right.
Because they take quite a bit of time for them to really do some real damage. So I usually say like most of the time you find some termite issues, it's fairly minimal. The damage isn't too bad. You get the house treated, and that's the end of it for the foreseeable future. Every house is either had them, has them, or is going to get them. They are kind of inevitable.
Especially around here, right? The soil.
Oh yeah, they love Monmouth County. They love sandy soils. So yeah, Monmouth County, it's like you either see them or you see the house has been treated. It's one or the other.
So would you say money well spent for a homeowner would be to invest in a I forget, sometimes it's quarterly, sometimes it's twice a year.
Pest control. Yeah.
Yes, pest control.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're looking for, and I imagine most homeowners don't, not a bad idea. They're not that expensive to have someone do something like that.
And they usually come with a warranty if they do find something after a while or something.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing to have in a house too.
Yeah, I always recommend that.
Yeah. People think it's a waste of money, but I'm like, it's going to be a lot more money if you have a problem that you don't know about, right? Yeah. So it's good. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for coming out here.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm sure you taught some people some good things.
I'm a fan. I listen to this. This is a good podcast.
Thank you.
You guys have a good dynamic.
Spread the word.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. We love each other. It is fun. It's easy. It's breezy. It's just kind of, paying it forward, teaching people things that they might not have thought to think about. We love this
pointing out
area.
the great vendors around here.
We have so many great people.
I just moved
businesses.
to Monmouth County, so I'm like,
did you?
that's one of the reasons why I listen. I mean, listen, I'm learning more about the county.
Where'd you come from?
I'm from Somerset County, Bridgewater area.
Okay.
So my wife and I, we just bought a house in the Middletown area. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcome to town.
I know.
So then have you been to Nicholas's Creamery? We had them on.
No.
Have you been? Okay. Well, you got to hit the creamery over in
They went to Middletown for the shaker shop right over there.
Okay.
On
It'd be the closest
35?
one to you, probably. Or Atlantic Highlands actually is probably closer to you.
Okay.
Really good.
Yeah. Well, Monmouth County is definitely one of, I think, the best, I'll call it the crown jewel in all of New Jersey.
They got voted the 7th best in the state. I was like, how is it the 7th best? Bergen County was number 2. I was like, please.
Wow.
Disregard that.
Get out of here.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe we have to start doing like local stops and we'll really be able to judge the different towns. But anyway, thank you again for coming. It was so nice to meet you. I'm going to be calling you really soon. Kate raved about you, which is nice. And you know what? You sound like we have the same way of thinking. I think I say it all the time in real estate. Like I'm the one constant, obviously, in my business, but we have a new buyer, we have a new seller, we have a new home inspector, we have 2 new lawyers, we have a new title company. You know what I mean? Like I'm building a new team. I'm building a new team with every house that I'm either buying or selling. So it's nice to have a wide source of vendors to work with because different people need to work with different type of people, right? Yeah. Everybody has different personalities.
Yeah, and I'm not a salesperson either. I tell people like, I don't need to be your inspector. Just, give me a call, have your clients give me a call, talk to them on the phone. And if we're not the right match, by all means, that's fine.
Right. I'm not forcing anybody to work with anybody either. Exactly. I like to have a lot of different people for, my clients to choose from because ultimately it is their decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So that's great. Very excited.
Well, thank you. This has been another episode of Brewed in Monmouth. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and listen to us on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Yes. And if you do want to look into a home inspection, you can find Ryan's business. What would be your, do you have a web page or?
My website is kfhomeinspections.com. You can follow me on social media at Kuhn Family Home Inspections. I put a lot of content out there, try and make it fun, educational, everything like that. And then my phone number is 908-721-1825. Call or text at any time, always available.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.